I've got no fear of death now. I believe that the soul is too strong an entity just to continue living. Yes, the body stops and decays and switches off, but the soul continues on to that next realm. Before my NDE, I'd been living in London. I'd moved down there hoping to try and turn my life around because I wasn't in a great place. I'd left school with very little qualifications, so I was struggling to find work really. And so I thought if I moved to London, you know, I might find some opportunities. But of course, it didn't answer all my dreams. It was even more of a struggle when I moved there because it was a very competitive city to live in. But I was picking up work, doing mainly sort of manual labouring work on construction sites, washing up pots and dishes, whatever I could get my hands on. And that's how I was living day to day. Eventually, I was broke. I was running out of work because I wasn't actually very good at that kind of stuff, especially the construction work. I wasn't cut out for it. So I started running out of money. I started drinking quite heavily as well because that's the kind of environment I was working in. And so that didn't help me with my finances. And so I was about to be evicted from my apartment, so things couldn't have got much worse really. I'd gone up to stay with my sister and her family for a couple of weeks just because things had got so bad, and I was seeing a friend off at the rail station who'd come up from London. As I helped her onto the car with her bags and everything, I stepped back after giving her a hug to say goodbye, and my coat got trapped in the automatic closing doors of the train car, and I just couldn't pull it free. I tried calling out for a guard, and there was no guard on that actual route. I was banging on the windows, I found these buttons on the doors to open the doors, but they didn't work because everything was locked down. So the train started to rev up its engines, and I just looked into the eyes of my friend who I was seeing off, and I just saw the absolute terror in her eyes, and I thought, oh no, this is it, I'm gonna die. So I was really just staring death in the face the first time in my life. It was terrifying. You know, the train started to edge its way out of the station, then it started to change gear one after another, and it started to go really fast, and I lost my footing. I got dragged along the platform edge and then pulled between the platform and the speeding train, and I went under the wheels. It was a very violent and terrifying experience, as I'm sure you can imagine. It was just like being thrown into this huge mechanical beast, you know, and it was like, it was dark, it was oily, it was fast and furious and frightening. I just tried to hang in there, you know. I was determined not to let this thing beat me or take me. I had this strong willpower that I wanted to live, and I did. And there I was, I just kept my face right down into the gravel. I was rushed into hospital, and it was at that point that I left all the agony that I was in. I left the drama of the hospital. That's when I entered into a whole new realm, which was to be my near-death experience. It felt like a transition, and I actually figured, to be honest with you, straight away that I was dead. And I didn't fight it, I didn't try to resist it, you know. It's not like I wanted to die, but after all the way my life had been and the whole horror of the accident, I just kind of went with it because I felt safe instantly as well. I was greeted by these pulsating colours all around me. They were like pulsating colours of light, like ambers, greens, yellows and reds. And that calmed me down. So I kind of lifted myself off the hospital trolley to look around to try and see where I was. And I realised I was no longer on that hospital trolley. And I looked down and I put my hands, and I was laid out on this huge rock now. It was like a huge granite rock. And the way I describe it best is like a medieval altar. It felt very comfortable to be laid out on. And despite the fact that I realised I was no longer clothed, I was just covered in this blue sheet. It was like a satin, sort of silky. And that also made me feel comfortable. And I just kind of closed my eyes and relaxed. Then I saw very bright light starting to come through my eyelids. So I opened my eyes, and as I did, I looked up, and there were these three symmetrical grids of white light slowly closing in. towards me. This light was so intense that normally, you know, the human eye would not be able to take that kind of light, but in this realm I could. So I kept looking into this light because I knew that it was more than just light. It was like a healing energy, a healing force that was just covering the whole of my body. I lay back and again and closed my eyes and just bathed in this energy of healing light. Then I felt the presence of somebody close to me, and so I lifted my head and opened my eyes again, and just at my feet was this person, this androgynous being that was emanating light from within, and with this pure white blonde hair and a simple black contemporary t-shirt, nothing too ethereal that you might expect to see. And I said, hang on, I know you. I know your face, but I couldn't figure where from. And I was saying out loud, where do I know you from? I know you. And this person just smiled at me with a knowing smile. But I trusted it, and I felt that this person was actually here to guard me and guide me as to where I might be going next. So I laid back in complete faith in this person. A little later on, I felt the presence of more people, and either side of me were two female forms. The girl on my right was wearing a very simple brown dress with long brown hair, whereas the girl to my left was wearing like a very traditional sort of beautiful white outfit, because she was of more sort of American Indian, Brazilian or Asian Indian in appearance, and so it was more of a traditional dress, which is really beautiful. Their hands were slowly hovering over my body, and they were going over the contours of my body without actually touching it. The energy that was coming from their hands was really powerful. It was just causing like every sort of molecule of my body to start vibrating, basically with unconditional love. And I felt that they were not only healing the injuries that my body had just been through and the whole shock of the actual accident, I felt like they were healing all the years of hurt that we all carry with us, you know, the baggage as we call it. And I felt they were taking all those layers of baggage off me, and they were just getting down to the pure essence of my soul. And it was a liberating feeling. It was like something I'd never experienced in my whole life, and it felt great, you know. So of course I felt total faith in all this. Then I started to think about my family, because they'd all been really distressed. My mother had been in tears, you know. It was all very difficult for them. So I thought, if I'm dead now, they're going to be really distraught. So I was worried about them. So I just kind of led my way over and tried to look down over the side of this big rock I was laid on, hoping to see them, but I couldn't see them at all. But what I did see was just something that was just even more amazing, because it was like a huge waterfall of stars. It was like a big arc of stars, and it was like looking at something the size of Niagara Falls or Victoria Falls, but instead of billions of tons of water cascading over the edge, it was millions of stars that were just flying over, shooting stars and all. It was just sparkling and really awe-inspiring. And I looked down and into this waterfall of stars, and as I looked, my eyes started to sort of focus, and I could see from one sort of galaxy into another. I was looking down into infinity. I started to see nebulous forming colours and beautiful formations, and I thought, wow, you know, this is like, I'm not in a small darkened space that I thought I was initially. I'm actually in the universe itself. So I was very aware of being part of the universe, and that was really quite a powerful moment to feel that energy of being part of the universe. I felt very much a connection with where I was now, rather than being back on Earth. I just felt a connection of this new realm, of this whole heavenly state or whatever, you know, that it was just more, I didn't know what it was. I didn't actually say, okay, I'm in the universe, but it just felt like the universe was surrounding me, because I was just surrounded by all these beautiful formations of stars and nebulas. But I was aware that I was feeling that energetic pull, that energy source within me. At that point, I laid my head back, and the final part, I guess, of the whole experience of being out there was the most profound moment, because as I looked through the stars throughout the universe, I suddenly saw this tunnel of white light coming towards me. Well, I felt it before I even saw it. I felt this energy was almost like shaking my whole body, my whole being. And I thought, what's going on? You know, and this beautiful tunnel of white light was coming closer and closer, and it was very vast. It had all these flames that were slowly circulating all the way around. Normally I would have been terrified by something like this because I didn't know what it was, but I knew what I was staring at here. I was being told, in fact, was the source of all creation. This was God, not, you know, God in the usual form that I'd always seen in my school books, you know, the guy with the long beard on the ceiling of the Vatican in Rome. No, this was God in the form of this beautiful white light. And the white light, again, was an energy of love, unconditional love. And I felt that it totally encompassed me. I describe it as being ultra real. Because that's what it was. And it was at that point I was suddenly thrown back into my body. I was back in the hospital. You know, all the energy of pain came rushing through. The light was suddenly gone from all that beautiful white light to the fluorescent strip. I was wheeled into theatre afterwards, you know, and then for 8 hours under operation. And when I was in the hospital room, you know, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, what has happened to me? Physically and mentally absorbing the fact that I've been under a train. That was a huge thing to deal with, you know. But the biggest thing on my mind was this whole experience and how I was going to tell everybody about this, because I knew nothing about near-death experiences or anything then. I was scared. I thought, I'm going to have to paint this, and nothing like this in my life. But it was within me. It was way buried deep within inside me, and obviously it needed to come through. It was interesting because when I did start that very first painting, of course I was apprehensive because I thought, how am I going to pull this off? Once I started painting, it's like I was getting a crash course in how to do this. I don't know where it was coming from, but I was being told how to sort of, you know, put colours to create skin tones and light and all those different things, and it started to come together so well for me that it was just amazing. And I knew that once I started doing this painting and the more that followed on, that I was still almost like attached to the energy of that other realm, and that I was being helped to bring this together. I work in music as well now, and I use both mediums to try to get across to people my story. And I definitely feel I'm being helped, that I'm being guided. I call it channeling. When it happens, I know I get those moments and I feel them, and it's a beautiful feeling, you know. And it's almost like my mind stops thinking and I'm all together, and I stand back in amazement and I'll go, wow, that looks great. That looks amazing. Where did that come from? I always go, thank you so much, you know. And so it's a process that I continue to be amazed by. Yeah, I've got no fear of death now, and I believe that the soul is too strong an entity just to continue living. Yes, the body stops and decays and switches off and ceases to continue, but the soul continues on to that next realm. One lesson I did learn, right, when I was in that realm was that time didn't exist. There was no sense of time. And I realized that for me personally, I'd spent the whole of my life up until that point focused on time too much. Like I was thinking about the past, all the mistakes I'd made, missed opportunities, and I was thinking about the future, what was going to happen to me because I was broke and where my life was going to go. And I never really stopped to live in the moment, and I realized that most of us don't actually live in the moment. The present moment is the most important part for us all, you know. And I think that's something it's a good guidepost for me, and I think it's a good guidepost for us all. My website, which is called shineonthestory.com, you can go there and you can listen to my music, because I started writing music for orchestra, which was something I've got no training in. I still can't read or write music, but I've been writing for many orchestras now. The first piece that I wrote for orchestra is called The Divine Light, and that you can listen to that and stream it for free on the website on shineonthestory.com. And then you can find my social media links, and the only reason I say to go there is because that's the way you can catch up with what's happening, you know, the next concerts coming along, or the next exhibitions, or, you know, museum pieces or whatever, that with my artwork.